The story begins in a quiet neighborhood in the Catalina Foothills, an area just north of Tucson, Arizona, where the desert views stretch for miles and the streets are peaceful enough that people rarely lock their doors behind them. This is the home of Nancy Guthrie, an 84-year-old grandmother who raised 3 children and still gathers with them for family dinners and game nights. Her daughter, Savannah, is a familiar face to millions of Americans who wake up each morning to the Today Show, but here in this house tucked away in the foothills, Nancy is just a mother who loves her family and needs her medicine to keep her heart beating properly. On the last evening of January, a Saturday night, Nancy did what she had done countless times before. She took an Uber to her daughter Annie's house, just a few minutes away, shared dinner, laughed through a game night. And when the evening came to a close, a family member drove her home. The garage door opened at 9:48 and closed 2 minutes later. Inside, Nancy settled in for the night, and no one who loved her had any reason to think this would be the last time they would see her safe. So what happened in those dark hours between that quiet evening and the frantic Sunday morning phone call that sent her family rushing to her door? The house sat silent through the night, but the technology inside it kept recording, kept measuring, kept telling a story that investigators would piece together like fragments of a shattered mirror. Just before 2 in the morning, the doorbell camera disconnected. It simply went dark. 25 minutes later, at 2:12, the camera software detected a person moving on the front porch. But Nancy did not pay for the cloud subscription that saves video history. So that footage was not stored. It was overwritten, erased, lost in the digital loop. Then at 2:28, something else stopped. Nancy's pacemaker, the small device implanted in her chest to keep her heart in rhythm, was connected to an app on her phone. That connection severed. The phone and the pacemaker stopped talking to each other. What is clear is that in those 4.5 hours between her return home and the disconnection of her pacemaker, someone came to her door, someone disabled her camera, someone forced their way inside, and someone took her away. What makes this disappearance so confounding is that Nancy Guthrie is not the kind of person who simply vanishes on her own. She is a vulnerable adult, Sheriff Chris Nanos has said plainly, someone who cannot walk more than 50 yards without help and who requires daily medication for high blood pressure and a heart condition that depends on that pacemaker. She does not have dementia. She is sharp, her family insists, fully aware of who she is and where she belongs. When her friend called on Sunday morning to ask why she had not arrived to watch virtual church services together, when that call went unanswered. When family members rushed to her home and found the porch stained with blood that DNA tests would later confirm was hers, the terrible truth began to take shape. There were signs of forced entry. There was blood on the steps. Nancy Guthrie had not wandered off. She had been taken against her will. But if the doorbell camera did not save any video, because Nancy did not have the subscription, how did the FBI finally see what happened on that porch? The answer is a story of modern detective work that took more than a week to unfold. Working with Google, which owns the Nest camera company, investigators dug into the residual data hiding in the back-end systems of the device. This is not video that was ever saved or stored, which is the digital equivalent of an afterimage, faint traces of information that linger in places most people do not even know exist. On February 10th, more than a week after Nancy vanished, FBI Director Kash Patel released the images on social media. The footage was grainy and brief, just seconds of recovered data, but it was enough. It showed a figure walking toward the front door in the middle of the night, wearing a dark ski mask that revealed only the eyes and mouth. Gloved hands, a backpack, and on the hip, visible and unmistakable, a holster holding a handgun. The figure cupped the camera lens, tried to block it, then reached down and picked up something from the yard and used it to cover the lens until the camera went dark. This is the person investigators believe took Nancy Guthrie, and this footage is the closest they have come to seeing his face. Now consider what else might be hidden in the technology Nancy left behind. In her bedroom, investigators found her Apple Watch, still lying there, still holding data that could tell them what happened inside that house. Retired FBI agent John McVeigh has pointed out that this watch could be the key to understanding the hours between Nancy's return home and her disappearance. The watch was connected to her pacemaker app, same app that disconnected from her phone at 2:28. But before that disconnection, the watch was recording. It was measuring her heart rate, counting her steps, tracking her movements through the house. Did her heart rate spike at 2 in the morning? Did the watch record 30 or 40 steps, suggesting she was walking around? Maybe to the door? Maybe in distress? 8? Or did she go to bed peacefully and then wake to find someone standing over her? The watch knows, but investigators have not released that data, holding it close as they build their case. While the forensic teams worked on the technology, the Guthrie family was living through a different kind of nightmare. Ransom notes began appearing, sent to media outlets, including TMZ and television stations in Arizona. One note demanded $6 million in Bitcoin. Deadlines were set and passed. Thursday evening came and went. Monday evening came and went. And through it all, Savannah Guthrie and her siblings sat together in front of cameras and pleaded with the person holding their mother. "We received your message," Savannah said in one of those videos. "We understand. We will pay." But the FBI later acknowledged that they were not aware of any ongoing communication between the family and actual kidnappers. Someone was sending notes. But whether that someone was the same person who took Nancy Guthrie is a question no one can yet answer. Then, on the evening of February 10th, came what seemed like the breakthrough everyone had been waiting for. Deputies conducted a traffic stop in Rio Rico, a community about 50 miles south of Tucson near the Mexican border. The driver was a man who identified himself only as Carlos, a delivery driver going about his ordinary evening. Deputies detained him. They obtained a warrant and searched his home. For a few hours, the news outlets reported that a person of interest had been detained, and the public held its breath. But early the next morning, Carlos Palazuelos stood on his own front porch, his wrists still swollen from the handcuffs, and told reporters that he had never heard of Nancy Guthrie until that night. "I hope they get the suspect because I'm not it," he said. A few hours later, the sheriff's department confirmed what he said. He had been released. "I'm charged." He was not a suspect. So where does the investigation stand now, nearly 2 weeks since Nancy Guthrie was last seen alive? The FBI has placed digital billboards in 4 Texas cities, showing the images of the masked figure and asking anyone with information to call. The reward stands at $50,000. The yellow ribbons that neighbors have tied around there, trees and placed on their curbs blow in the desert wind, and the family waits. And while they wait, they continue to hope. Savannah Guthrie has said it publicly over and over. "We believe she is still out there. Bring her home." Sheriff Nanos has said the operating presumption is that Nancy is still alive, but the concerns are real and urgent. Nancy needs her medicine. She needs the pills she left behind in her bathroom cabinet. Without that medicine, her health is in serious danger. This could prove fatal, authorities have warned. The clock is ticking in more ways than one. This brings us back to the question that hangs over this entire story. Who took Nancy Guthrie, and why? Was this a targeted kidnapping, aimed at the mother of a famous television anchor in hopes of a massive ransom? Retired FBI agent John McVeigh does not believe this was random. "If you are a burglar and you come upon her and there is a fight," he said, "you are not going to take her. Burglars want to escape, not kidnap." This person came prepared. He wore a mask and gloves. He carried a holstered handgun, knew how to disable a camera. He moved deliberately, calmly. This was not a panicked intruder. This was someone who knew what he was doing. But if this was a targeted kidnapping, why have the kidnappers not made sustained, credible contact? The family has made it clear that they are willing to pay, and yet no one has collected. No one has provided proof of life. It is a silence that defies every pattern of ransom kidnapping until someone comes forward. The case remains open and active, if you haven't already. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Cases like this one depend on all of us paying attention and sharing what we know.